Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another Rookie Card Collector 123 video. In today's episode, we're going to take a look at our next top 10 early rookie cards and low pop cards for one of the National Baseball Hall of Famers. Today's subject is going to be Roger Bresnahan. Bresnahan was a catcher right around the turn of the century and played primarily for two ball clubs, the New York Giants under John McGraw and also the St. Louis Cardinals. His career spanned primarily around 1900 through the early 19 teens. So the first card, the earliest card of Bresnahan and the true rookie card for him would be the 1903 W600. Those were the Sporting Life cabinets. Was a player photograph that was mounted on a thick cardboard backing, measuring approximately 5.5 by about 8.5 or so. They came in 4 different types. They were issued in, if you think of each type as a series, they were issued in 4 different series. They were issued as a Type 1, Type 2, Type 3, and Type 4. Type 1s were issued in 1902, the very first season of distribution, and they would run total from 1902 to 1911. So the Type 1s were in 1902. Type 2s, which is the earliest Bresnahan release, began release in 1903. And then you had Type 3s, which came within a year of Type 2. And then finally, the Type 4s were the last release, which began around 1906 and would go all the way through 1911 to the end of the Sporting Life distribution time frame. So Bresnahan appears in the 1903. He's with the New York Giants at that point. And these are very tough to find. Population reports on the W600s. The numbers are usually under 10 for most players. Some of the non-Hall of Famers and some of the more obscure players can be nearly impossible to find. Because the way you receive these, you got coupons or redemptions from the Sporting Life magazine, and you mailed in a request, then you were allowed to choose a player from a checklist. And of course, just about everybody back in the day would have chosen the most popular or the best players at the time, which would maybe included guys like Cy Young and Honus Wagner and Christy Mathewson, guys like that. So as you could imagine, the more obscure players, very few people would have sent in for those. And the ones that did over the years might not have bothered to keep them for the obvious reason, there probably was no perceived value. I mean, these things did not have much of a perceived value back in that day anyway. And if it's a nondescript ball player, how many people would even bother keeping them if they did come across one that somebody did order? So anyway, Bresnahan earliest card would be the 1903, the Type 2 W600 Sporting Life cabinet. Next, second one we have here, this one is even rarer by definition. It's a one of one, a one of a kind. So it's got to be the rarest Bresnahan there is. This one is the next year, 1904. This was a gaming card company called Allegheny, and they put out a set. It consisted of only National League players, and they were a duotone set, so they were printed in blue and white. The cards, the background was white and the ink was blue, so it was only one color plus the white background. And this, as far as we know, was printed as a test issue. The only one set was printed, and for whatever reason, never ended up getting released to the public. So only one set is known, and there's many Hall of Famers in there. There's a Christy Mathewson in there, which I've seen. I've actually seen the Roger Bresnahan. It was for sale at a card show back in the early 2000s when I was collecting the Hall of Fame rookies. I did not end up buying it, but One of each player in the set. So extremely rare 1904 Allegheny Bresnahan. That would be his second card. Next one up we have is also 1904. This was another cabinet card, kind of similar to the W600s. But this one has no manufacturer known. It's cataloged and checklisted, and it's just called Anonymous Cabinet Cards 1904. And Bresnahan is included in that set. The image for the Bresnahan is the same image that was used for some of his other cards. I believe it matches the early W600 image as well, and a Carl Horner portrait pose. So 1904, Anonymous Studio Cabinet, Roger Bresnahan. Next one up we're going to talk about is another 1904. This was a Police Gazette supplement. Police Gazette was a newspaper that covered a lot of sports, various different sports, including baseball, back around the turn of the century, and even before that, during the 19th century. Around 1901, they would start putting out supplements for baseball players. And these supplements were huge. They were probably around 11 or 12 inches by about 18 inches long. So these, unfortunately, would not fit in even the biggest grading company holder. So these you would have to collect raw and put them in some sort of an oversized top loader. At one point, I had the Christy Mathewson when I was collecting the Hall of Fame rookies. His was one of the very first issues from the first year, 1901. And I had it in a big top loader. But anyway, Bresnahan appears in the 1904 one of these supplements put out by the Police Gazette, one of those giant oversized supplements, and that would be also his third 1904 issue. After that, we get more into the more traditional types of cards for the most part. So the 1906 would be the next year. Bresnahan would have a card release, and that was the Fan Craze set. So that was put out as a playing game, board game, with players from the set that Bresnahan is in would be the National League. There was also an American League set put out. Originally, the American League set was cataloged as a 1904 release, and the National League was 1906. Since then, it has been determined that the American League was also put out in the same 1906 season. So both the American and National League sets were 06. And Bresnahan is included in that 1906 Fan Craze National League set. Next one we're going to talk about, we're going to move up to 1908 now. And Bresnahan appears in the E91 American Caramel series. This set is not always one of the most popular sets. They use generic ball player pictures to represent specific players who are identified by name at the bottom of the card along with their team. The backs of these would have a checklist for the 30 cards that came in the series. And what they did was they printed 10 cards for 3 different teams. So that made up the checklist of 30 players. And they did that 1908, 1909, and 1910. They did that over 3 consecutive seasons, the American Caramel Company, all with using the generic player images. And each season they would update 3 new teams that were not included in the previous years. So Bresnahan was in the first release, the earliest release, 1908. Those are separated by letter designations at the end of the American card catalog number. So, for example, the first set, 1908, is E91-A. The 1909 set is E91-B. And the 1910 set is E91-C. So Bresnahan was in the first set, 1908, so his series is designated as E91-A. And that would be one of his first possible more traditional type of card. The Fan Craze is also a traditional size card, but some people don't consider it a really a card because it's a playing card game with the rounded corners and all. So next up, we have another 1908 release. This one actually ran for 2 years. So this went between 1908 and 1909. This was another postcard set. So this was the Rose Company postcards. These postcards were quite fancy for the era. They had the player's portrait and in a circular design in the center of the postcard with a gold kind of ornate border surrounding the player image. And then that is surrounded by a green, basically a representation of a baseball field. Rose Company postcards extremely scarce. Populations on these are typically under five for most, maybe 5 or 6, 7 like that. But very hard to find. Prices have really skyrocketed in this set over the past couple of years as well. Another postcard set that Bresnahan appeared in that same time span was the 1908. This one ran until 1911, so this was a 4-year release. It's called the Bregstone Postcards. And Bregstone put out in the St. Louis area, they put out postcard issues for the St. Louis Cardinals of the National League and the St. Louis Browns of the American League. And of course, Bresnahan was with the Cardinals of the National League, so he appears in the Bregstone Cardinal release team issue. And the last Bresnahan we're going to talk about today is going to be the more common, not more common, it's very hard to find, but one that people might be more familiar with. It's the T204 Ramley Bresnahan. The T204 Ramley was a tobacco set put out in 1909 and included, or I should say, did not include many of the top players in the era. It's kind of best known for being a very ornate and fancy type of design, and also for the fact that it did not include the major stars like Ty Cobb and Honus Wagner and Cy Young and Christy Mathewson. They left out a lot of the really big names, and I'm not sure if anybody knows why that was, but they did have some Hall of Famers. Bresnahan is included in there. It's a very popular set. They're tough to find. The Ramleys came with Ramley backs advertising, and then they also came with backs that had TTT, which was a related cigarette brand from put out by the same manufacturer, but much scarcer than the Ramley brand. And there's also some of the Ramleys have a blank back. So that's going to wrap up today's episode on Roger Bresnahan, top 10 early and low pop cards for another National Baseball Hall of Famer. Bresnahan is probably not considered one of the real inner circle guys, but he is in the Hall of Fame, and Hall of Fame collectors, of course, usually need to have some kind of representation for Roger. So those are some different options to look out for. Once you get just beyond the time frame that I talked about today, you move into the T206 era, the caramel card era. Those cards are much more plentiful, and you'd be able to pick up a Bresnahan for probably in the $100 vicinity. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Have a great day, and I'll catch you guys again on the next one.